50 minutes. JJ joins us on Sic'Em 365 Radio, 365 Sports. So how about Blake Shapen, Oklahoma State, and how well he played in that first half last year? Is that something that helps or does it matter this weekend?
I think it helps because he has an idea of kind of how they want to attack him. Now, they've changed defensive coordinators, so he's going to have to rely a little bit more on, just the tape instead of kind of his memory. So the success is good. He has opportunities. He has at least a positive memory for the most part. But still, I mean, it'll be a real challenge because they've seen what he likes to do. And like anything, Smoke, once they see what you want to do, they're going to try to take that away. So it's good about the memories, but they're going to change it up a little bit, I bet.
JJ, this was the first time that Baylor looked like they executed their game plan the way they wanted to this year without any kind of restarts or adjustments in the middle. How important is that going at Oklahoma State?
I think that is very much important. Like rhythm is always big, but I think for them, really just for this team, if I think about it, it's really just the confidence. And I talked about this on the radio more so than anything, is that, for this team, to me, they can beat anybody on their schedule. Number one, they can't, but they can lose to anybody to remain on their schedule. But I think for this team, really, I think it's the learning. This is the second year in a row, I think, that I've seen this team learn from something. That's really coaching staff deal. So I think, I think for this team in going into Saturday, the positive feel they got that, hey, we went to BYU, we played well, offensive, defensively, all the way around. And Paul, really, I think that, to me, is the main thing about this team, man, is that they learn from game to game. They reduce the penalties. They learn how to deal with road issues. And that was the thing that really stuck out to me, is that, Coach Aranda's teams, whatever he's doing to get across to him, he gets it across to him.
JJ, just in terms of just how they looked and kind of how that game unfolded, when did you start to feel pretty good about things? Was it that opening scripted drive, although Iowa State did the exact same thing? When did that game start to kind of tilt in Baylor's favor in your mind?
I never felt real comfortable because we got a lead, and at the end of the half, they scored. It was almost a mirror image of BYU. You played, I thought, really well, got the breaks, you got the calls, and you're only up. What was it? I think it was 7 or 10. I mean, it was closer than it should have been, maybe 10. But, to me, when I really felt comfortable, I guess, and I shouldn't have, is when we got the flea flicker touchdown. We were up 31 to 14 or whatever, 17, whatever the score was. I said, okay, everything's working now. Everything's working. And, like anything, we go into kind of what I would call our normal zone kind of approach, and they put up one on us and kind of made it closer than I thought it should be. But at Iowa State, it's always a tough game. I never really felt comfortable, especially when they scored pretty quickly to close it to I think it was a score game or whatever. So, man, I would say probably the flea flicker did it, but still, that last run at me, just, that onside kick is when I felt best.
What did they do to give Shapen some opportunities in the run-pass option on the edges?
Early on, I thought they did a good job because Iowa State, I think they knew exactly what they were going to get from Iowa State. Iowa State is not a pressure team. They're a zone team, keep everything in front, make a play, see if you can drive down. And the weird thing about this Baylor team here is that they actually play better that way. They actually play better when you make them run plays. It's an odd thing. And so early they spread Iowa State out. They gave Blake some really quick, easy reads. He knew what he was going to get. He was decisive, and I thought that helped get him going. To me, Blake has to make a couple quick throws and that's how he gets his confidence. And once he knew what he was going to get, even though, there's still some reading that goes into it, I think that confidence had already been built. Then the running game slowly started to come. It took it a while to really get going, but it was effective enough to make Iowa State at least pay attention to it. And then he was able to get a few quick throws, got his tight ends involved, a lot of play action. And I thought that really was good for him, especially early on the road when you really struggled at Provo.
JJ, can that Hal Presley catch launch him into, showing more of that moving forward?
Oh, man, I hope so. I hope so. Because that's when I said, okay, that's why they recruited this young man right there. I mean, he's a contested catch, kind of guy. And it's some people like that. Like, there's some that are route runners. There's some that are, blow by guys. There's some that are possession guys. There's some guys, that's what they do. They're a contested catch, Moss kind of guy. So I was surely glad to see him make that catch. And I think as a young player, that's all he needs. He just needed something that was huge. It felt like he contributed to the win. And hopefully what that means is they can integrate Monterey a little bit more. He got one catch for 3 yards. And you got Ben, of course. Dabney had a good little showing. And, you still have Seth. So it was really good to see that from Hal.
Does it matter that Baylor has played BYU and Iowa State and Oklahoma State and hasn't really been challenged yet?
I think it does. I mean, like some people say it doesn't. I think you saw it on Saturday with OU. When people were talking OU, I told my friends, I said, they're good, but they're not that good. And hopefully they don't record me and say this is what this guy, the color guy from Baylor said. But no, don't get me wrong. I said they're good, but I thought I said, hey, look, they caught Nebraska at the right time. If you're OU, I mean, Nebraska's a storied program, but we know they've been struggling. I think they played UTEP and Kent State, solid programs, but they're not at the level that OU is going to participate at. And they caught Nebraska at the perfect time, I thought. They were in transition. They were hoping they would get this energy up front. They got it, but they couldn't sustain it. And so I thought with Oklahoma, I said, hey, Kansas State, they lost the game. They've been in a fight. OU hadn't. And I think the same thing with us. I think, for Oklahoma State, don't get me wrong, these guys, they know how to play at a certain level, but I think it helps us to have been in 2 real good fights early in the season. And Oklahoma State, they've been in the fight. Central Michigan was tougher than they thought it would be. They came back on them, but this is going to be one of those fights where you got that kid on the block and you thought you could mess with him and you forgot, that kid's pretty tough. This is going to be a long day. So I think it helps Baylor.
JJ, when do you start working on the next game as a broadcaster? Do you kind of decompress on Sunday after a game, for example, in Ames, and you start maybe by Sunday evening? I know information either sent to you and you do your own. When does that start? What's that like for you each week?
Yeah, for me, I usually try to start watching the next week, really not until, Tuesday, Wednesday. I kind of like to go back and I look at, highlights from the last game and to see, who, because a lot of times, you forget how our guys play. You really don't pay as much attention to what our line play was like as much. You just know, hey, there's a big hole. I was interested to see how Mo Jeffrey played. Thought he played a solid game, because, of course, Grant was out. So I'll start really focusing on Oklahoma State. I think I watched part of the Central Michigan game, but I'll start really focusing on them tomorrow and then Thursday and Friday.
JJ, I thought Dave Aranda had a really interesting comment in his one-on-one, and I don't know how much you can really shine light on this, but best as you can. He was talking about the wide receivers. I was curious, just curiosity's sake, I wanted to know how much they really looked at the transfer portal in terms of their receiving options because of the fact that, as we pointed out, there's not a lot of experience there. And he basically answered that, he and the coaches talked about it, but ultimately they looked at basically this island of misfit toys, guys who had been injured and kind of forgotten about or, tossed to the wayside, and felt like, hey, if we just pour everything we can into these guys, they've got the talent. They're our transfer portal guys. They're already on our roster. What do you think that ultimately means to players when they have that kind of a vote of confidence from their coach?
No, I think, I think it means a lot, to be honest with you, Craig. These coaches say person over player. And when you look down the pike, I think the challenging thing with Coach was he knew that this team had an opportunity to do something special again. It's hard to replicate. You never can replicate or duplicate it. But he knew that he had a lot of really good returning players, and really the hole was going to be probably his edge defenders, his corners, because they'll be inexperienced, in his edge wide receivers, players on the edge of the offense. And so I'm sure they look, But I think after a moment, they say, hey, look, man, we got kids, young men who are really talented. We just have to coach them. And we hope by the end of the season, and that's what you hope. You just really hope that by the end of the season, when you get to week 6, 7, 8, someone in that group of talented young men start to really step up. And I think you have. I think Hal made a catch, and I think Seth made a catch a couple weeks ago. And you just hope these young men start picking it up. Monterey, you hope he gets back in. So when you get into the meat of the schedule in the Big 12, that starts like every week. Now that everybody is very competitive, you hope they're ready to go at a high level.
Did you see an edge from the offensive line that even Dave Aranda or Eric Mateos, we can't talk to him, that maybe thought was missing the first 2 or 3 weeks?
You know, it's interesting. I mean, I thought they played really well. I wrote that yesterday. I thought the offensive line played their best game. And the reason I thought that is I think that the game plan allowed them to get to the point to attack. I mean, it was I thought Coach Grimes called his best game this year. I mean, he saw some great games. I thought this year he really kept Iowa State off balance. And then they got to the point to where nothing was just huge. They had a couple of nice plays, like, Howes and a big run. But, man, they started mauling these guys. And I mean, it's been a while since I've seen an Iowa State team start missing tackles and couldn't get off blocks. Those guys usually are solid defensively. And they got to the point late third, starting to the fourth, where I knew we could run it anytime we wanted to. And Squirrel and Reese ended up, I think, combined with, wasn't a lot of yards, but they were like 31 for a 114 and 117 and a touchdown. I bet you probably 60 to 70 of those came in that late in the game because they just couldn't tackle them. They were getting blocked.
Did you like that Lemire, Snacks, who made what almost became an incredibly great play until the bounce that Brock was able to get it back in possession? There's a couple, Neal, some of these younger names were a part of some of the plays that we saw in Ames.
Yeah, I really was. I'm glad you brought that up, Dave, because I know Lemire made that. He actually, the interception I think that Neal made, I believe Lemire is the one that started that play. He dove into a slant, deflected the ball up, and I think it bounced off somebody, and I think Neal caught it. That was a special play. I mean, the recognition he saw, as soon as he saw the quarterback turn, boom, he went full speed. That's recognition, film study. And then Lorando Snack, I mean, John, he played a solid game. I know he had a couple, I think, guys made catches on him, but that play to keep running, and I think they got him. I think they really got him because they called that out. I was very surprised they overturned it because I never saw an angle they showed us that he actually had possession of it before he went out.
Yeah.
But that was a huge play. That's an effort play. That's the one that they'll play over and over about. This is the kind of level of effort we want.
I agree. And Dave said that. Aranda mentioned that as well. Man, thank you. We appreciate your knowledge, insight, and your experience. And Saturday, again, 2:30, it is Oklahoma State, Baylor. J.J. Joe on the broadcast on Baylor Radio and former Baylor quarterback. Thanks for your time, sir.
Thanks, guys.
J.J. Joe, he also